All right, let's see, is this one working now? Oh, right, there we go. All right, let's see. So the bottom is there. All right, so I'm just adjusting it to make sure it has the entire paper on it. The bottom of the paper, let's see, I just move my finger up a little bit. So we're off page a little bit. Okay, I'm just gonna raise this. Let me know if this angle looks okay in the chat. And move that centered a little bit more. Okay, not too bad. All right, thank you. Leave it like that. You could also move this up a little bit, and that would be there. There we go. All right, so I have my laptop right to the side, and it shows me the view that you all have. Oh, thank you. So I could see that. And what I had to do was, before I even started the live stream, I had to set the orientation for it. It doesn't seem to let you switch it mid, or at least on the phone. And the other thing was that once I set it, it wouldn't let me start it with it horizontal like this. So I had to tilt the camera this way, so away from me, and then that registered, and I was able to put it back. So that's the setup for now. Let's see. I started talking to the previous one, and then John had pointed out one of the issues, so I'm just restreaming it now. My buddy had called me up. His wife had passed away, and one of their friends, her husband had passed away, and her husband, I think, was the father of my friend's nephew. Like down here in Louisiana, everybody's related. So he had asked for a portrait of the people who had passed. And I don't usually do portraits, especially if you watch this channel, but I figured it would be good to kind of sketch and have a little bit of fun and just do it live. And then that would be a good kind of trial run to see if I would like to film more in this style. Less worried about time constraints, because it's just kind of sketching and having fun with this, and I'm not trying to get a tutorial out there for people. So that being said, I'm using this is just an antique Eversharp pencil holder, a pencil. It takes the 1.1 lead. I don't believe 1.1 lead is made anymore, but there's a brand, Legendary Lead Company and Legendary Pencil Company. John Valet, he bought out a whole bunch of stock, and he's redoing it and making pencils again in that style. I like it because it's a little bit thicker, and it's a soft lead that I have in there. And I figured I'd just do a few kind of preliminary sketches and get some ideas about how I would go about making this portrait. So it's two people sitting side by side. I have the picture right here. I'm sure that there's ways to overlay images on top of what you're filming, but I'm not at that level worth of streaming. So we'll see. I like to mark the top of the image and the bottom of the image where I'm working, and also kind of left to right, because the person's head, his arm comes out and he's holding a cane out to the side. A very stylized photo, and that would kind of give me an idea of where everything can go. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so for those that don't know, I had put out a book of my work, kind of just like experimenting and getting stuff out there to see how the printing process works. And John was kind enough to order one. And I had printed through Amazon and through Barnes & Noble, so it was an interesting experience. So preliminary sketches, whenever I do them, it's to kind of see what type of issues I can have and what I can do to correct them. If you like portraits, I'm probably not the person to learn from, but maybe the sketching ideas will help you all out. Where I like to kind of work the overall scene, and I think that that helps get proportions to take place. In college, we had life drawing and painting classes, and we had live models for that. But I haven't worked from a live model since quite some time. Let's see. All right. One second. But yeah, there's different ways using the pencil to measure the objects, to get head widths and different shapes. There's a kind of classic book a lot of people reference. It's probably at least 100 years old. I think it was Bridgman's Guide. So they have it sold in different sections, and they also have it in kind of entire books. You can access it for free on the internet because it's so old, it's out of copyright. But a physical copy of the book probably costs you about at most $10. If you look on eBay, you'll find them used. So that's Bridgman's Guide. Bridgman's Guide, if I remember correctly, would have just overall proportions, the 3D concepts of the objects. There's a whole section on the different type of fabrics and the way they fold. So if you're looking at fabric and drawing something, you can look for those folds that are taking place. So if you're looking at portraits and you want to be serious about it, that's definitely something to check out. Another book, another artist, there was an old, I think an anatomy professor for drawing, and he has some videos up on YouTube, but they're in black and white. They're very, very old. The lecturer was Hale, Hale, I believe. So you could probably check those out. And he had some books on just different issues and how the masters had solved them. So classical examples, or something from the 1500s, etc., on how they dealt with things. All right, so like I said, this one's just going to be a sketch and just to get ideas out there. And looking at it, we're going to have this outside of the coat come in. The waistcoat comes in here. We have a set of buttons there. The body's more orientated upright towards us. So I'm going to have to do some adjustments there. If you have any questions or want me to chat about anything, feel free to put it in the chat and I'll try to address it. So my buddy Mr. Raymond asked for this, and he had said that he likes the kind of older look of my work, and I'll probably wind up using a toned paper for the final product if I actually have anything in me that can come out good. And I might wind up using the Trois crayon technique, using the sanguine, the white and black. Probably the Conte crayons. Sorry, not the Conte, maybe the Derwent pencils. I just really like those. So his head, I'm gonna have to think about it like the oval here, and that hat comes down low. It shades his eyes pretty much. So that's something I definitely have to prepare for. It's kind of like a flat fedora. We can get some good shading on that. His nose is right about here. Like I said, the eyes are pretty hidden in shadow. The mouth be about here. Unfortunately, this guy has a beard. So I'd probably sit something like this. Picked up these Tombow mono erasers because I do kind of pencil sketching of just landscape stuff, but these are nice and small and will help get into specific spots. In fact, this doesn't come out as far. Great place to put a dark. A great place to kind of get that dark idea. You even catch a little bit of that bottom brim. Then we have light right here, so it's going to get darker as we come across. So just using the light and shadow to get a little bit of volume in that concept there. And just pulling out a little bit of highlight for the top of that brim. Oh, nice. How's the weather in Missouri right now? Okay, so nose concept right here. He's got kind of a flatter nose. So the people here are African American, and I remember, but I don't remember specifically what it was, but in a David LaFell tutorial, and his stuff is behind a paywall, so you have to pay for those ones, but he's an absolute master at painting portraits and still lifes. If I remember correctly, he said there was a connection right here that was slightly different that you can look for, but that's just kind of lost right now. to me. The nose is going to be highlighted. Dark underneath the lips. I really struggle with the portraits, but it's for the widow. And my friend, Mr. Raymond, the one who asked me, he had said that, well, he was the caretaker for an artist that I really greatly admired down here, Mr. Tom Sechrist. And for Mr. Raymond to have been his caretaker and then say that he likes my work and that the sketching style reminded him of Mr. Tom's, it really means a lot. Yeah, it's warm down here. We're finally getting a touch of cold weather. We're going to get down to 35 tonight. So I turned the heater on to get some sort of idea of what's going on. First time turning on the heater on the new house. Okay. So that's what I'm going to have to do with the face. And I'll decide if I do that in colored pencil, wax, etc. Just to kind of reiterate a few things. My darks underneath the cap. Really focusing in on the gradient. So as we go from here to here, it's going to get lighter. And we could even use kind of the eraser to create that gradient as well. If you look at the portraits that John Singer Sargent did, especially in graphite or charcoal, he does a lot of those marks. Drawing is kind of an additive and subtractive technique, putting things in, taking things out. And I'm sure there's a lot of better ways to get the proportions correct. And people that do portraits just really practice them a lot. It's really something that is just practice, practice, practice. Anyway, I'm going to come back to this shape here. He has a white tie. It's funny how nice this gentleman looked in a suit, and then looking into detail, there were things that were kind of all over the place. So I guess we might not even notice that in real life. Okay. You're going to catch a little bit of black from the suit that kind of comes up, and you're going to have this guy curve around the neck. So the white collar, and it's going to get hidden underneath the beard right here. I'm just doing that shape for the beard. Let's bring that down. So looking at this point and this point, this one's a little bit lower. So I'm just drawing them in relationship to each other. Her arm comes out to about here. We probably see less of him. And in fact, we can get some nice darks in between the two of them in shadow. His hand. I might just do it more as a masked object rather than individual markings. Oh, thank you. Are you somebody in the chat had said that they like the work or my watercolors. Their name's Irishman. Are you from Ireland? Let's see. Let's bring this down to here. So here's some points of reference. Here's the knee. Here's this shoulder. The knee, absolute closest part of the knee, is a little bit to the right of that. His hip lines out with the outside of the hat. So I'd take the outside of the hat and drop that down for the hip. The hip gets covered by part of his coat. And that's where study of the Bridgman's Guide would probably really help, the fabric folds. Got that there. We have some miscellaneous folds in here. The outside of the coat, there's our initial part that comes up here in dark. Then we have another part of the coat that comes out stiff to that point. And that also lines up to a point right here. So I can drop that down, break that down on the outside. So that's some coat ideas. This arm is lower than the waistcoat V. It's between these two buttons. Yeah, so about here. Pull it off the corner here. Yeah, it's deeper than 45 degrees, I think, or about. Then the bottom lines up with about the top of his hand. So I'll bring that out here. There's some of the crinkle folds. The wrist, the white underneath the wrist of the long sleeve shirt. Hand comes up. Hand is going to be a mass. This cane has an interesting hook to it where it comes down. I don't want it quite vertical down. I want it on an angle. But then this next part where it connects goes out a little bit further. Let's just cut that off. If it wasn't for the cane, I'd probably want to just cut it to about here where it's just the two heads and the torsos. Oh, this is just an antique pencil, an Eversharp pencil, but the lead, so it's just graphite, is 5B or 6B. And this is just Bristol paper. All right. His jaw, so let's say his jaw is about here. It's going to line up with hers. Her head is tilted this way. So let's get that. Center. Hair. Her hair is poofy but solid on top with slick back on the side. And we actually see an ear take place. So we do the top of the ear with the top of the eyebrow. Nose. Mouth. So I think I'm going to have to wind up using the eraser or whatever to highlight back here and to highlight in here. And to essentially get the slicked look, in this area of her forehead, there's going to be a highlight. And the hair itself is going to be highlighted so I could soften that edge. Her cheek, I'm just kind of massing the cheeks. The nose, highlight underneath this eye, a little bit of light over there. I'll come back to the face later on. All right, so she has jewelry. You don't really see much of the neck above the shoulders. Her chin come in line with that shoulder. Then we'll have the strap for the dress. We have the jewelry that I want to have a different arc than the dress itself. Dress is going to come a little bit higher than the shoulder. This one's a little bit smoother, so I might not exaggerate it. We'll see. Dress comes down. We have the breasts. And with the way that fold happens, it looks like come around and we come up a little bit down the center. In fact, be able to get a little shadow underneath. Just bring that along. I don't want to accidentally make it too wide, but that's the whole point of me sketching, is that I haven't done a portrait or a person in a very long time. And it shows. Shade on the inside of the arm, and we're going to highlight right here. In fact, that might be a nice area just to kind of let that light float off into the background. Oh, compositions? No, this one is, why did it zoom out? I think it's the zoom. You guys don't need to see my lap. I really don't. This is just from a picture my friend sent me. All right, then we'll have a little bit of a lighter dark right here. Two hands coming together. She's going to have a wristwatch. That out. So it's going to come out. We're going to have shade on the inside of the arm. This whole dress is pretty much in shadow. I can't really make much out of it from the picture. So I think it might just be nice just to kind of darken the center of it, maybe have a little bit lighter on the side. So we transition, and then just have it a little bit lighter on this side. Get it darkening at the hands. She has some sort of flower on her wrist. They said that this picture might have been from graduation or something. In fact, he has a little flower right here. So I'll prepare for those. So I'm going to treat this whole spot like the way I treated his hat. Okay. So the Irish guy is from Dublin. That's awesome. Okay, so we have the upper thigh. Leg crosses over here. I could put the foot something like this, where it's going to narrow with the calf to a point, and then it's going to open back up. this other foot that it's crossed over, we'll just catch a little bit of that pant leg. Because the picture doesn't have that, and I just don't want to fudge that since I'm not really good anatomically. White chair, kind of have a triangle shape right there. Darken the underside of his leg. Can have a lot of dark. It's pant leg. Maybe just have a simple fold in here. We have a few folds with highlights. And then we get dark again. Maybe a little flare for the pant end. Then the black socks and then the shoes. I really dislike chairs in portraits. But maybe I could find a way to kind of wing them, just get a little bit of a feel there. I'm going to have to bring them a little bit closer in the actual drawing because I want this overlap to be better. Let's see what else. Need the neck right there where we can see that. Shade on this side of the face. So that'll help that. Shade on the underside of this arm. And that'll get that flower to pop better. Shade on the bottom of the hand. Shade on the bottom of that arm. Just grab some other pencils. This might be kind of fun to explore. These are the Mars Lumograph. You can get them. Oh yeah. That's something from the old professor. Yeah, that's the old professor I was talking about. The one that had passed away. Yeah, like with this one, I think doing an overall sketch, like I'm doing now, like I said, to solve the problems, help out. And I think in general, just establishing some tonal values really helps things look more realistic or quicker, or nicer quicker. I grabbed a 7B. This has, it's a pencil, but it has, I think, carbon mixed into it. So it's the Mars Lumograph. And I figured it'd be good to kind of just pull out darks like that, since I can't get it with my pencil. Because he has his arm behind her, or around her. So setting that back, looking for where we'd have a lot of dark, might help in here, especially as we transition into her clothing. I could decide not to have any transition between the two, or a very soft transition, and that'll probably look kind of nice. The inside of the coat edge would be a great spot for that nice dark. When we transition from the white fabric to the dark fabric. I think shading it in and not so much making round marks and more kind of doing a blocky surface helps out as well. I mean, I know the legs are round and stuff, but having that blocky aspect kind of helps out. That's going to be the pant leg, the sock, and the shoe. Darker on the inside of this coat sleeve. And it has folds across the top, so I'm just going to kind of fudge that. This is a little variation in the coat. here a fold comes down and it gets dark. Where it curves around the hip, it's dark. Darker. And you can kind of stylize these things any way you want. I'm going to grab the eraser and pull out the highlight there. So even though this is a black coat, it has essentially a white highlight right there. We can put movement of marks along it. I think it was drawing 3 at UL. I had taken some art classes up in New York at Stony Brook when I was getting my degrees in math and physics. When I came down here to do my teaching certification, oh, so his arm isn't around here, it's right here. And then when I came down and took them at UL, they called them like Art 3, Art 2, Art 1, or Drawing 1. And the professor that I had, I think it was Scottish, from Scotland, like it was like Scott Sutherland or something. He would have us with charcoal or pencil in one hand and an eraser in the other. So you'd put in, I can't do it with this type of eraser, but we had the kneaded eraser. We would put in a shadow, let's say, and then we'd come back in and pull out some form, put in a shadow, pull out form, and go back and forth in that fashion. A lot easier when you can use both hands, and the kneaded erasers are good for that. We're also working very large. Okay, so with the breasts, you have that uptick, and we have a little bit of a fold. And I don't mean to be like using language that would be offensive, but you know, we have a fat fold right here. So we have the breasts come over, we have the fat fold there with the stomach, and then we have the hips come out. And you know, it's just the way people are made. In fact, I remember my art professor up in New York, Chris Semerjeff, in a painting class. I remember him saying that he wanted models that were heavier set because you could see the curves and the outlines more. What would be nice would be putting that shadow in here and then pulling out that jewelry with the eraser. Side of the arm. I wish I had done this head over here so we could see how it would look. I could probably just do a nice in the actual painting, like just literally just 2 marks like that, and that might be a fun way to represent the chair. And just get it lost in everything else. I don't want anything in the background. I don't want. There's an aisle right here. Let's see if there's anything that we can kind of think of for the background. So with that, you want to use linear perspective. If you put some sort of walkway in, I don't think I really want that there. The horizon is like really high up here. I could maybe just put loose sketch marks. There's rows of chairs that maybe I can just put the idea of a chair in. And there's people back here, but I don't want to put idea of people. That might be. Let's see. I'm going to try something drastic. Say a shade in the background at their head level. And then come with an eraser and create the marks there. Let's see. background shaded in, or background shaded in further. So the idea, I think I have a, yeah, I just ordered some off of Amazon because I lost my other one. Let's see if I can find it. I thought somebody lost that one too. I had a slightly bigger eraser. Oh, I have this electric eraser. And let's say pull out some highlights. Maybe put the idea of chairs back in here, where it's just something faded off in the distance. It's not something we're super concerned about. In fact, you can see how much I smear with my hand. And we can pull out highlights with the electric one. Okay, so John in the chat asked, do I listen to music or anything when I'm working? I have lately been playing South Park in the background, the TV show, if I'm not filming live. Hey, Percival. Or what else do I do? I had a podcast that I was playing. It was Tony Hawk. I really like skateboarding, so there was that. If I do music, sometimes it's like classic rock or 80s. Other times it's like, oh, sorry, Percy. It's like stoner doom metal, where it's just very repetitive doom, doom, doom music, or the same thing over and over again. Because it's kind of a little trance-like, hypnotic. All right. I think that I'm going to have to put the shadows on these side of things, with shadow in the middle of the dress. Shadow there. So shadow on the right lower side of things. So that the electric eraser, and these things are like $10, $15 on Amazon. They're probably cheap right now. So we'll have the highlights on this part of her body. Highlight here. And I'll pull a highlight that's stronger on this side, and I'll probably do a lighter highlight on that side, so I can get the light to kind of come across. So that's where we really need to put that there. Then his coat, even though this is white, I might want to put a little bit of something in there. Percy wants to get in the window. Let me open that for her. There you go, Percy. That's that back leg. Back leg, knee. So we got to get that knee in there. So that was something that I was missing. So that's the point of these preliminary ones. So you pull the knee out. So my favorite portrait artist, and I'll mention again, John Singer Sargent. He was just an absolute master of it. We even have a screensaver on the living room TV. That's a John Singer Sargent. And he was like the guy to get your portrait done by in, I guess, the second half of the 1800s. He got into a little bit of a scandal with his painting Madame X, and I believe that is in the Metropolitan Museum, where it was a woman standing like that and looking off that way, but one of her dress straps was lower and not on the shoulder like the other one. It was actually repainted on top of to fix that dress strap because that caused a big scandal. Even though it was titled Madame X, everybody knew essentially who the woman was. And like, I guess she was cool with it, but you know, with the families back then, it was not. So he did a lot of oil portraits, but he apparently didn't really enjoy doing them. And to catch up on commissions, he started doing a lot of portraits in charcoal or pencil. And they're absolutely wonderful. So if you haven't had a chance to look at those, give that a go. I need to keep into consideration the arm thickness, like how wide her arm is compared to the width of her body. There's a highlight coming from this side. I'm not sure if it's something that I should put in or not. Okay, so that's where the flowers are going to go. I'm just going to fudge the hands. Because so the watch helps with that. The bracelet or whatever we have right here, the white flowers. And those will hopefully detract from the hand. So trying to bring the eye here and here and just be like, don't look between them. I could even shade that a little bit more, and that brings interest right there to those guys. Oh, I'm not going to paint this one at all. The question was, why don't I prime the paper? Honestly, this is just sketching, and with drawing mediums or dry mediums, I like to use this toned paper, the Strathmore, and that's what I'll probably wind up doing the finish or the next sketch on top of, on something like this. Because the toned paper with what is it? With the white and the black give you the two different directions, and if I do the sanguine, the red, the 3 crayon technique, we then have the red for the flesh tones. There's a guy, Mark K. Kaminsky. Mark, if you type in maybe fountain pen drawing, Mark, and you start typing in the K, or chalk crayon, Mark K. He has 3 different techniques that he shows with that. He's a professor, a drawing professor, on YouTube, and there's free videos. With the paper itself, you don't need to prime it. Quality paper is important, just because they're racing and they're going back and forth. There is stuff with like the toothed paper where there's more of a texture, kind of like the cold press watercolor paper, where you kind of want to be careful apparently when you're putting it in, because you push the tooth down and you start to clog the paper. But those type of things are beyond me. That's probably pastels and things like that. In a micron pen, this would be pretty cool, but it would be more sketchy than this. But I think this is going to be the general composition. This hand is the other one. So he has a hand here, and we can kind of fudge it a little bit. Remember, my art professor mentioned Chris Semerjeff. Like over 20 years ago, I remember him making a comment about a Bonnard painting, impressionist painting, where he's like, it's so beautiful. And I think it was a woman in the bath. It's a famous painting, or getting out of the bath. And he made a comment that everything looked good except for the hand looked like a hoof. And he's like, why did he make the hand look like a hoof? See, like here, right now it accidentally looks like a mitten. So got to figure out a way how I want to create that.
So you choose before you go live if you want it to be horizontal or vertical. And
Percy just climbed onto my laptop and turned on the video on how to change the orientation. Okay. So yeah, not that I know of, no need to prime the paper. The cane looks pretty cool like that. I wonder if there's anything else I need to really worry about before I actually do a next attempt, and less of a study and more of a serious one. These erasers don't really work the best with the colored pencil since they're waxed, but I think I'm going to rely on that. Get a little extra oomph right there when we show the diamond shape and the tie. Just like that. With his face. I really don't want to put too much dark in. Let's see. There's the dark of the hat. In shadow. Would I be able to pull out any eyes? It won't let me erase that much. I think that's an example of the paper getting saturated or just not being able to erase. Since this is the experimental one, let's see what we can do with a razor blade. Been using the razor blade lately in the watercolors. Kind of to scratch back or to simply pick a whole area to cut back to a white. That might be something to consider. I don't know if people do that in pencil or dry media. That's where that 300-pound paper would really help. Maybe the jewelry around her neck would be what I would use that for. All right, so just some different ideas. Let's see. I don't know if I want to move on to the next one yet. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Thank you. see what time it is. It's 5:30. I think I might end this one here. And if I decide to start the second one, like another version on it, toned paper, I'll go live with that. I just want to wash my hands and get graphite off of them, or charcoal, and get the pencils ready that I want to use. So I'll be back. I'm not sure if it'll be tonight or tomorrow or soon. But I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for dropping by and asking questions. I appreciate you, John, and I appreciate you from Ireland. All right. You all take care. Bye. How do I end the stream? There's probably just the X. Yep.